Okay, I'm gonna start now if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Okay, so hello and welcome to the Gyan Dive. I'm your host, Shaylee, and today I'm extremely honored to be speaking with Professor Edwin Bryant. Professor Bryant teaches Hindu religion and philosophy at Rutgers University. He's a renowned scholar and author whose work has been pivotal for students and practitioners alike. He's perhaps best known for his brilliant and highly accessible translations and commentaries on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and the Bhagavad Purana and his deep scholarship on the Bhagavad Gita. Professor Brian, thank you so much today for taking the time to speak with us. Your work has truly helped bridge the gap between academic scholarship and personal practice for so many, including myself. So, with that, I'd like to ask you the first question. So to start off, for many in Gen Z, life can feel like a series of performance reviews, from grades to social media likes. The Gita begins with Arjuna having a kind of breakdown under pressure. From your study, what is the Gita's most immediate answer to this feeling of being overwhelmed by expectations and results?
Um, well, the Gita, Arjuna has a breakdown. It's not an existential crisis. He's not asking questions about, well, who am I? And, what happens at death? And is there a God or not? He's having a dharma crisis. He's on the battlefield and he's been asked to kill his uncle, his guru, actually, and his grand uncle, who's actually like a father figure because the Pandavas were orphans. So it's about how to act in the world. um, as a yogi. Up until the Gita was spoken, the references we have to yoga in the older texts, the Upanishads and so forth, the old Puranas, the yogi sitting in the forest has renounced the world and is seeking, truth, ultimate deep level, the Atman, or Brahman, in whatever way that yogis understanding that, but it's taking place in the forest, renouncing society. So the Gita is the first place where Krishna says, well, that the destination, that goal of the yogis of experiencing Atman can be attained while acting in the world. And the process is to act according to one's duty, dharma, but have no desire for the fruit. Fruit will come, but whatever it comes, it comes. So this idea of giving up desire is the common denominator that joins all forms of yoga, Buddhist yoga, Jain yoga, karma yoga, again. That ultimately it's desire that binds us to this world, and as long as we're bound by desires in this world, we're embodied. As long as we're embodied, we suffer. So the Gita then is giving us a map of who we are. It starts off with Jnana Yoga, who we really are, not what these bodies, what the gender or race or color of the body, not the what the disposition of the mind is, but who we really are and the deepest possible level. And then it tells us how to act in the world by performing duty without any self-interest, simply at the duty's sake. And then finally, the ultimate teachings of the Gita are devotional, that there is a God, a loving God, and one can offer these one's duties, one's dharma, one's performance of action, and offer it not just perform it without desire, but offer it to God. That's called bhakti. So there's Jnana Yoga, which is the first teachings, which is we're Atman. So that's first established in the Gita that we who we are, and then once we know who we are, and then the next step is, well, then now what do we do in the world? And then we get the teachings of karma yoga. How do we act from a place of knowledge? And finally, how to offer it all to God.
I think the Gita perhaps was the first time when I realized that desire is just like a natural way of human life because I feel like in many religions like desire is frowned upon, but this is the first time that we're actually told that like desire covers us. So like it's pretty natural for us to have desires. And then it also shows us the way to like curb them. So I thought that was super interesting. Um
Yeah, but 1 second there, we have to qualify that. Desire for the truth, desire for God, desire for the Atman, that's what Patanjali would call aklishta. Those are yoga positive desires. But if we think we're body mind and we desire to find pleasures for the body mind, then it's not that it's frowned upon. It's just it's not like, okay, this is bad because God said it was bad. It's not like that. But the law of karma kicks in when we act on behalf of body mind, as opposed to acting on behalf of the Atman or God, which is knowledge and wisdom. But when we act on behalf of body mind, every action has a reaction, and those reactions accrue, and they create the good and bad experiences that come to us. So actually, the Gita uh does actually problematize normal desire for body mind. It absolutely problematizes that because, like all yoga traditions, desire for body mind is the cause of suffering because it just perpetuates samsara. What
Right.
the Gita is promoting is desire the Atman, seek the Atman, desire Bhagavan, seek Bhagavan. So that kind of desire is good desire.
Thank you for that clarification. And then my next question is kind of related to what you were talking about earlier. So, karma yoga, acting without attachment to fruits, is a famous but tricky concept. In a world that tells us to hustle and grind for specific outcomes, how can we realistically practice this idea in our daily routines, like studying for an exam or working on a project?
Well, we can first of all pay attention when we desire and we're attached to a desire, right? Let's just say, forget about yoga for a minute. We're not doing yoga. We're just sort of regular kind of activity, and we desire. Now, pay attention. Do those desires ever get satisfied? We
No.
start paying attention in that way, we realize that these desires that I've sought right from the beginning, when you're little, you wanted sweeties or candies, and you get a bit older and whatever it is, and start with makeup and then boyfriends and whatever the
Mhm.
regular sort of sequencing of desires in a young person's life or an old person's life. Somehow or other, they never get fulfilled. The illusion is we think, well, we're not fulfilled because we're missing something. And so we look for some other desire. We pull out some other, oh, maybe I need this, or maybe I need that. Maybe I need to move. Maybe I need to get a new job. Maybe I need a new partner. So we keep thinking the problem lies with, with our material resources. But when we realize nothing I've ever done in terms of fulfilling material desires. What do I mean by material desires? Desires for the pleasures of the body
The
and
external.
the emotions of the mind. Yeah. When one realizes, well, wait a minute, I've just had my whole life has been doing nothing but pursuing these desires, and not one single one of them has fulfilled me, at least not for very long. When we realize that, then we begin to, like the Sankhya Sutra says, the first verse, then we begin to wonder, well, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. Why? Well, I'm looking in the wrong place. And that's where then yoga philosophy, is there when we're at that ready for it. And it will tell us, well, the problem is you're chasing desires through body mind, and you're looking for happiness through body mind, and that's you can never find it that way because anything you experience in the body mind is temporary. So if we seek the deep level eternal pleasure that or happiness that we all seek, then that lies in the yoga, in the yogic experience.
Right. But how can we like actually like detach from the outcome? Like I know that's like one of like almost the essence of the Gita to like be detached from the outcome of whatever you're pursuing. But how can we like truly do it in today's day?
Overlapping with what I just said, when we realize we're suffering, when we realize that the way we've been, the way we're accustomed to act in the world with desire, with attachment, it makes us miserable.
Right.
It has to be real. I have to first pay attention. Am I happy? Am I being successful in my pursuit of ultimate happiness? And we begin to realize, well, it's the attachments themselves that are obstacles. So we have to see that first. We have to see that we're suffering. We have to see we're unfulfilled. If we don't see that, why would he take a yoga path?
Right.
If we think we're hunky dory and everything is so fun, fantastic and brilliant, then why would we want to change? So the yoga journey begins with the realization that we're not fully fulfilled, and that realization comes from paying attention to our own experiences. We don't have to just because some Sanskrit text says it. We
Right.
just pay attention to our own lives.
That's
Think,
so true.
yeah.
Um Now, like with like Gita and our identities. So the Gita and the Yoga Sutras both deal with the ego. Social media often forces us to create a curated, perfect identity. How can the Gita's teaching about the eternal self, Atman, help us navigate this pressure to perform a certain identity online?
Well, the Gita is going to say, look, what is your real identity? Is your body your real identity? If you believe in multiple lives, let's say reincarnation, then clearly this body is not your ultimate identity because you're going to change it next life. And even in this life, you've changed bodies from baby body to toddler body to little body to youth body to middle-aged body. So the body's changing, but so therefore the first question is who's the real I? And and the Gita is going to say the real I is the Atman, it's consciousness itself, and consciousness is not gendered, it's not race, it's not situated in ethnic racial group. It's consciousness itself, which is in all beings. So that's why the very first teachings of the Gita are that we are eternal Atman, and that is the identity. Now, all this other identity that I don't know what's social media, I don't really get involved with social media, but all of this sort of pressure on kind of some kind of whatever image of a body and a mind, but that's not that's never gonna work because we're not the body and we're not the mind. The body's always going to change.
Right,
You're going to get old,
right,
and the mind's going to change. You're going to believe one thing and then change your belief, and then happiness, distress. The mind is always going to be changing. So the very, very first thing the Gita challenges us to consider is who are we ultimately? Till we got that nailed, and we're trapped in the external self, and that's always and there's always going to be social pressure, be this way, be that way. Okay, whatever media's got maybe coming up with some image right now, and 5 years another image, and 5 years another image. I mean, that's just there's no stability in that
right.
because so first thing to do is ask the question, who am I actually deep down? Am I a woman? Or is that just a temporary type of embodiment in this particular life? Am I my thoughts? My thoughts are always changing. Am I my ideologies? Well, they're always changing. So what am I that's unchanging? And that is I'm a conscious being, consciousness itself. So the Gita is asking us to go beyond the superficial images of social media and come to a much, much, much more deeper answer to the question, who am I? And the answer would be we are Atman, which is pure consciousness.
That's beautiful.
What is that written on your Shakti? You got
Yes.
Shakti. Oh, okay. And very nice.
I really believe in Shakti, so
Okay.
I had a personal question for you next. What was your personal most profound teaching from the Gita that you found through your experience? Because you've read a lot about it, so I'd like to know.
Manmana bhava mad bhakta, mad yaji mam namaskuru. Fix your mind on me at all times. All times. That doesn't mean for half an hour puja in the morning. It doesn't mean Sunday and Monday. That means 24 hours. That's the goal. So that is the ultimate highest teachings of the Gita. Krishna says it. Listen to it one last time. This is my last and highest word. He says it. He repeats it all through the Gita. But actually the same lines, manmana bhava mad bhakta, occur twice. So fix your mind on me, become my bhakta, surrender everything to me. Sarva dharmam parityagya, surrender everything to me. That is the ultimate highest teachings of the Gita. There is a God, and the goal of life is to dedicate everything to that Bhagavan.
And how do you like do that constantly? Like how do you constantly
It's hard. Well, you just like it's hard work. It's just like anything else. And of course, if you're attracted, you have attraction. Like, for example, I'm a Krishna Bhakta. It's like a mother. The mother's always thinking of the child. It's quite natural. The child is always on the mind of the mother. So that's love. So, or like when you date someone in the beginning, it's all consuming.
right.
So love of God is like that. It's natural. Attraction is natural to these one of the forms of Bhagavan, like Krishna or Vishnu or Shiva. But there's also work involved, like any form of yoga. It's not magic. You have to, you have to invest willpower and mind control. You have to make the decision. And the Narada Bhakti Sutras has a beautiful definition of bhakti. It offers several definitions, and it says the best definition of bhakti is to always think of Bhagavan, and when you don't and you forget, to feel remorseful. Oh, I just spent the whole 5 hours and Bhagavan didn't even enter into my mind. So how do you do that? I mean, it's you make a decision you want. First of all, you have to make a decision. That's what you want to do. And once you make a decision where your mind's not used to being fixed on Bhagavan all the time, we're used to being fixed on all these frivolous, superficial things. So that's where the practice comes in.
Right.
And there's ways of fixing the mind of Bhagavan through mantra meditation, through pujas. There's ways of channeling that meditation in more active forms of yoga, like I just mentioned. Puja is, studying the sacred texts and also the stories of Bhagavan, doing japa, reciting the mantra of Bhagavan, and so on and so forth.
Got it. So now shifting slightly to Yoga Sutras, which you've translated so eloquently, Patanjali says yoga is to still the fluctuations of a mind. For a generation dealing with anxiety and digital distraction, what is one practical first step practice from the sutras you would recommend for just finding a moment of mental quiet?
Well, create that moment, just everybody can if you make that decision. And then take a mantra and focus the mind on the mantra, and not with no prayer. You're not asking God for anything, simply surrendering the mind into the actual presence of God, because in mantra theology, the mantra is a manifestation of Bhagavan. It doesn't represent Bhagavan. It
Hmm.
is Bhagavan in and an avatara, a sound avatara. It's an avatar. It's an actual presence in the form of sound. So I would recommend to young folks to take a mantra like the Hare Krishna mantra
Hmm.
and just absorb the mind in it. Find 20 minutes, half an hour in the beginning, can always increase, and focus, just surrender the mind into that divine presence. Again, it's not a prayer. You're not asking for help. Bhagavan knows what we need and what we don't need. We don't need to ask, but just to be in that divine presence. That is all soothing for the troubled mind of anyone in any generation. I don't know. What is Gen Z anyway? I don't even know what Gen Z is.
It's Generation Z, which is, the generation that I'm part of. So
Or
like,
what defines it? It comes after what? What does Z stand?
well, I think in the 2000s, like people who were born in 2000s, like after 2001 or so, are considered Gen Z.
Oh,
Um, so like they are the people who like deal with social media the most, like who kind of grew up with that.
yeah,
So yeah,
got it.
I think this is like super relevant for them. And
Okay.
coming to like mantra chanting, like I feel like when you do it, like you kind of go into a trance, which is like it helps still the mind, I feel like from personal experience.
It does do that. It does do that. But remember, that's just kind of like a side effect.
Right.
But what the mind is doing is contacting Bhagavan directly. The mind is contacting the
Hmm.
sound, and the sound is Bhagavan. So there's direct personal contact with God. Uh,
Wow.
it, and the way to actually experience that is to surrender all one's ego.
Hmm.
As long as there's ego, then that contact isn't made, or at least Bhagavan doesn't manifest in the same. But Bhagavan's attracted by humility and surrender. So with humility and surrender, that Bhagavan captures the presence of Bhagavan.
Wow.
I like your Rajasthani earrings. They're
Oh,
Rajasthani. Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
They're actually a part
That's
of my Gerba jewelry collection. So,
Are you from Gujarat?
yes, yes, I
Well,
am.
that's right next to Rajasthan. They probably share similar styles, but typically they're kind of Rajasthani shaded.
Yeah, yeah, they're similar. They're
Yeah.
similar. Um, Now for the Bhagavad Purana, which you've also written extensively on, is all about devotion or bhakti. For many young people who are spiritual but not necessarily tied to a religion, how can the essence of bhakti as love, connection, or awe be relevant? Can we experience it through things like music, nature, or community?
I mean, you can experience God in anything because God is everything. So
Mm-hmm.
you can experience God in a lump of excrement. If you choose to, excrement is Prakriti and Prakriti is Krishna's Maya. So someone on a very, very high, called it Uttamadhikari, the highest state of devotional vision, that person seeks Bhagavan everywhere. Everything is Bhagavan. The person's always in the presence of Bhagavan. But for us, we're still trapped in material ways of thinking. We're trapped in our duality. For us, the best way of encountering Bhagavan is like through mantra and and,
Right.
and things like puja. Now, for Indians, puja is something they're familiar with. For Westerners, it's more problematic because it's not something that, the deities in the temple are not something that we find in, it's not understood in the same way in the Western culture. So mantra meditation, I think, is the best place to start. Was that your question? Where's the best?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would say mantra meditation.
Uh,
The Hare Krishna mantra is called the Great Maha Mantra, and that's a great place to start.
okay, now if you wanted to give like just a brief summary or like brief introduction of these texts to people who know like nothing about it, what would you say?
I would say until for many years, certainly you only really need to study 2 to 3 texts. Let's say three. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, because it's now part of our Western culture. It's no longer an Indian text. It's now become an international text. So if you do a yoga teacher training program, you have to study the Yoga Sutra. So we can say it's now no longer, it's broken out of the confines of India and it's now become, I would say, one of the great spiritual classics of the world. And that is about fixing the mind and how do you calm the mind and what is the self and how do you experience the deep level self? How do you go beyond the turmoil of the mind and the anxieties of life? How do you get to a place beyond that? And how do you practice meditation? So that's the Yoga Sutra, and I recommend that for everybody. The Bhagavad is less about the actual mechanics of meditation and more about how do you act in the world along the lines we spoke of. How can you act without being frustrated and happy, sad, good, bad, good,
Mhm.
bad, good? The mind's always, oh, this is good, now it's bad, this is good, it's bad. So constantly sukha dukkha, sukha dukkha. How do you get to a place of peace where you can actually navigate the world from a peaceful place? And that's detachment from the fruits. And that's karma yoga. And how do you then offer that to God? The Bhagavata Purana is about God. It's about God in entering into the world in the form of Sri Krishna and outlining how God comes to attract us. He comes to part of the reason he comes. He also comes to, reestablish Dharma, but he comes to also reveal himself such that we become attracted. And, Krishna reveals himself in delightful ways. He becomes a little child and he is mischievous and he steals butter. And why? Because it delights the mind, it attracts the mind. And God wants us and he wants to attract us. He wants to attract us to have a loving relationship with him, but we have free will. He can't force it. But he does his best to attract us. And if we become attracted to God, then we lose our attraction for because the world cannot give us anything
Right.
other than temporary, usually frustration. But even if it gives us some, moment of pleasure and happiness, it doesn't last for very long. So that's not a very good, from a yoga point of view, that's not a good way to use the energy of the mind, chasing things which ultimately lead to frustration. So therefore, the Bhagavata is about God Himself.
Wow. Um, and then these three texts present different paths. The Gita is karma, jnana, and bhakti. The sutras have a meditative path, and the Bhagavata emphasizes devotion. From your perspective, how do these paths work together for a modern seeker? Is there one that acts as a foundation?
Well, Jnana Yoga is the foundation, which is that the first teaching is in all the texts is that we are not the body, we're Atman. Now, some yoga paths take us just to the Atman. It takes us to an experience of the Atman. And so Sankhya does that, and Advaita Vedanta does that, and yoga does that. But the Bhagavad Purana and the Gita, but Gita just sort of, introduces us to the idea that there's a higher Atman, a Paramatman, a different Atman, and that's God. And so the Bhagavata Purana then really takes off where the Gita leaves off. The Gita takes us, okay, but God is Krishna's God. Goal of life is surrender of in Krishna. it kind of leaves it there, and then the Bhagavatam takes that up to the PhD level, if you will. So it's not that I mean, in a sense, they're different paths, but the goal there's basically two goals. There are those yoga processes that take you to an experience of your own self, and many schools that's all they do. Some schools even reject the idea of God, like Buddhism, Jainism, and
Right.
ultimately Advaita Vedanta. So, but there are those schools which take you to their own self, and in whatever way that's understood, karma yoga is what included. And then those traditions that focus on God as distinct from the Atman. They still accept the Atman. You still can pick up the Atman along the way, so to speak. But that the ultimate goal is not just the Atman, but this higher being. And at that point, the goal becomes love rather than bliss.
Right.
The traditions that where you seek your own Atman are use the language of bliss and freedom of suffering and all of that. Whereas the Atman, the paths that include that, but take it further onward towards God, uh, the goal of that is love of God.
I think I'm so grateful for t for having taken the class like Hindu philosophy while I was at Rutgers because I don't think I would have delved into like say the Yoga Sutras or the various Upanishads if it weren't for this class. So I'm like super grateful for that. And I think it's something that everyone should kind of get into. And I think honestly, like the biggest barrier for me was like not having a good translation of like even the Gita. Like I think your translation of the Gita has made it like super simple for me to like understand it and like be able to apply it to my life. But I feel like for a lot of English speakers, like there aren't many like good translations that like convey the essence of like what the Gita is trying to say. So,
I think Swami Bhaktivedanta has a good translation that's very, very devotional.
mm-hmm.
So I would recommend that to
Okay.
the Krishna translation. I would recommend that to if they're interested in devotion
Right.
and bhakti and God. If they're not interested in that and they're interested just in the Atman, then maybe Shivananda's. There are other excellent there are many translations, Shaylee. There's over 300 now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't personally translate the Gita. I translated the Yoga Sutra. I think you're referring to the
Got
Yoga
you.
Sutra, yeah.
Yeah.
But I did start the Gita, but I don't know if I'm going to finish it. No, it's not the translation; it's the commentary. And my view is that commentary should be situated in the tradition. It shouldn't be, we should be presenting the tradition rather than our own ideas, speculations.
Can
So we
you
can take a
I
couple
also
of questions, Shaylee, because I have something at 9:45. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, that's okay. I won't take much of your time.
No, that's fine. But if we can go for another 10 minutes,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
if
Sounds
you
good.
could just fit in,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
But
No,
but
I
so
understand.
many
Thank you
people,
so much for
yeah,
taking
of
time out.
course, of course. I'm sorry it took so long to
No,
fix
no,
the
you're okay.
time.
I think a lot of our audience might be curious about your own journey. Like you don't seem like someone who would, um be a part of like be such a scholar of all these texts. So like I think they would kind of want to know your journey and like how you got here.
Well, I had an intense urge to seek spiritual truth when I was very young. So I was one of these characters that hitchhiked to India in the 70s. In those days, you could still hitchhike over to
Hmm.
India. And I spent a number of years there living in ashrams and studying with teachers. So that's how my journey began. And when I left the ashram, I was looking for some way to support myself, but also continue with my studies and practices. And being a professor of Hinduism fit that need pretty remarkably. So I'm very grateful for that. And, allowed me a platform to also share the teachings with students.
Awesome. Um, and then finally, for a young person who's curious but doesn't know where to begin, if you could recommend one simple 5-minute daily practice inspired by these texts, what would it be?
I would say read the text before you do anything else. There's no point picking up a practice, but the practices lead you somewhere. They presuppose a certain understanding of the God, the self, the world. So before you take up a practice which is going to be embedded in certain presuppositions, I would study and what are the presuppositions of Indian philosophy? What are the presuppositions of Bhakti? So I would read the Gita and the Yoga Sutras and the Bhagavad Purana, but start with the Yoga Sutras and the Gita.
Got it.
And then first build up some knowledge before then thinking, okay, now, in other words, develop some faith in
Right,
the claims.
right.
Yoga's claiming you're an Atman, you can experience the Atman. Gita's claiming that you can work in the world with a place, from a place of peace and calm. And these are claims, so you have to first study them, decide whether they resonate with you, and then take up a practice. But if one's eager to take up a practice, mantra is always the first place to start. I would recommend the Hare Krishna mantra.
Got it. And
Great
what is
mantra.
that for
Hare
listeners?
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. So that is the great mantra for that is a place to start.
And finally, if a young person today wanted to truly live the teachings of the Gita, not just read it, what would you suggest as one or two concrete daily practices or mental attitudes to cultivate?
Always be attentive when you act, whether you're trying, your mind is contemplating what you're going to get out of it. What are you going to get out? You're talking to someone, and whatever it is, you might want them to like you, or you might want whatever it might be. Want to get something from them. Always be aware of your self-interest and start to try to act without that self-interest. But first, you have to be aware that it's like a ghost. Self-interest, desire, personal desire is like a ghost that haunts us 24 hours. First, because we think it's normal. So the Gita is saying, well, it's normal in an afflicted sense. That's not the healthy self. That's the afflicted self. So first become aware of this kind of constant mental state. We're always trying to get something out of everything we do, and then witness it, and then next step is we'll pay attention to that never works. It never satisfies. We think it's going to make us happy, but it never does. So then pay attention to the second stage, which is, well, actually, acting out of self-interest. Myself is never satisfied, whatever I do.
Mm.
And then think, okay, maybe there's other ways of understanding who I am, what the world is, and what action is. Then picking up the Gita and seeing what the Gita has to say about those big ticket questions.
Wow. Thank you so much,
You're
and
very
thank
welcome,
you for
Kate.
gracing my podcast. Like you're
Well,
my
good luck with
first
it.
guest.
Good luck
Um,
with it.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah,
And I'd love to have you on here again.
sure.
Thank you so
You
much.
can, yeah. Okay. Well, good luck with your podcast and have a great
Thank you. Thank you. You too.